State of the Union with Candy Coley, CNN Sunday morning, 9 Eastern.
Let me ask you first, what do you know this morning that you didn't know last night? What have you learned?
Well, as was announced yesterday by Yemeni officials, they have picked up 2 individuals that they believe were responsible for mailing these packages. So we're working very closely with the Yemenis to find out what these individuals know, where that investigation might lead inside of Yemen, and we're still working very closely with British and Emirati authorities on the construction of the IED, which seems to be very sophisticated, both in terms of the type of construction as well as the concealment techniques that we used. So we're still learning a lot about this plot, and we're trying to make sure that we do everything possible to protect air travel as well as the American public and others.
Are you fairly certain that you are not looking for any suspects in the U.S. that might be connected to this?
Well, we can't presume that there are not individuals in different locations throughout the world, including the U.S., who might have some association with this plot. So the FBI is working very closely with the Department of Homeland Security and the intelligence agencies to run to ground any lead. And we know that these packages were sent to locations in Chicago that have been associated with synagogues. So working very closely with the Chicago authorities as well. So what we need to do is to make sure that we're pursuing every lead possible, again, to understand the full and comprehensive picture of the threat that we face.
So if I understand you, you do have leads that might bring you to someone in the U.S. in connection with this.
Well, those packages were addressed to locations in Chicago. So what we have to do is to make sure that we run to ground every possible lead that we might have there. And we know that al-Qaeda has been determined to carry out attacks in the homeland. So whether it's al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula or other franchises of al-Qaeda throughout the world, we need to stay on top of this because they look at the United States as the target that they really want to be able to attack successfully.
Has there been any claim of responsibility?
Not to my knowledge to this point.
But you are convinced that this was al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula?
It certainly bears all the hallmarks of AQAP. It's very similar in terms of the types of materials and the construction to some other devices that we have seen. The Christmas Day bomber, attempted attack against one of the senior Saudi counterterrorism officials. So AQAP has been outspoken in its determination to carry out attacks. So yes, it certainly points in that direction.
And have you found yet any connection with Anwar al-Awlaki in terms of this particular attempt?
Well, he is a self-proclaimed member of al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. And so all of those individuals and members we are looking very carefully at. The involvement of individuals in this plot we're still tracking down, but AQAP as an organization as a whole is something that we need to maintain pressure on, working very closely with the Yemeni officials, and we will destroy that organization as we're going to destroy the rest of al-Qaeda.
Can you tell me what you think the intended target was? As you know, the British think that these devices were intended to blow up in air, in other words, the cargo plane. You all have talked about they're being intended for 2 Jewish synagogues in Chicago. Which is it?
Well, they were addressed to 2 locations in Chicago that have been associated with Jewish synagogues. That said, the British have the lead on the investigation on the device that was found at the East Midlands Airport. And Prime Minister Cameron said yesterday that it appears as though they were designed to detonate on board that aircraft, but that they don't believe that the terrorists would have known the location of that aircraft when it was going to be detonated. They were self-contained. They were able to be detonated at a time of the terrorist choosing. And so we're, again, looking very closely at this. There's a lot of forensic analysis that's going on. So again, they were destined for a particular location in the United States in Chicago, but it appears as though they had the capability to be detonated on board that aircraft, and they could have brought those planes down.
Well, similarly, could it have been detonated in the Chicago at the Chicago addresses? In other words, would someone have to be on the ground in Chicago to have detonated these things in Chicago?
It is my understanding that these devices did not need someone to actually physically detonate them, that they could have been detonated in the location where they were on the plane, or they could have been detonated when they reached their destination. Again, we're still looking very carefully at that. I think there is some, analysis that's still being done. So we are not going to presume anything in this case because we need to take precautions for aircraft, for cargo, as well as for locations here in the United States.
A two-part question. Is this particular threat now over, this incident? And does it make you want to take a look at that UPS plane crash in Dubai in early September?
Well, some very good work was done, both overseas as well as here in the United States, to find those two packages and to make sure that those devices were made inert. Very close and strong partnership there. So we don't know whether or not that's the extent of it, so we're going to continue to pursue all possible leads in the event that there are some other devices that are out there. The crash of the one plane off of Dubai, we are looking very carefully at that, working with the NTSB and others to make sure that we understand the cause of that crash. And so right now we're making sure that we look at possible other events or other developments that might have some relationship with the most recent packages that we've discovered.
So again, just to clarify, you believe there is a possibility that there are other packages out there somewhere en route someplace. That's what you're looking at now.
It would be very imprudent for me and for others within the counterterrorism community here and abroad to presume that there are no others out there. That said, we are working with the intelligence that we have. We feel as though we've stopped all the packages that are coming to the United States that were originating in Yemen. The Yemeni authorities have cooperated to date. I really hope that the cooperation continues. So we're trying to make sure that if there are other packages out there, other IEDs, that we're able to find them before they're able to be detonated.